guys, Cryptid Zach here, for all things strange and mysterious. Today we're examining the phenomenon known as a near-death experience, or NDE. An NDE is when a person's consciousness physically separates from their body. Then they later return to life, often with amazing tales of traveling down a bright white light, or meeting with deceased loved ones. While many people believe that this is proof of a soul, or an afterlife, skeptics claim that this is just a side effect of a dying brain, and that near-death experiences are subjective because we have to take the word of a person's near-death experience. To weigh in on this debate is University of Cryptozoology professor and psychic explorer Mark Anthony. Mark, how do you counter the claim that near-death experiences aren't real?
Well, let me ask you this, Zach. What if more than one person had the same near-death experience?
Has that happened?
It has. When a group of people who are all facing death at the same time share the same near-death experience, we now know this as a shared death experience. And one of the best examples of this, Zach, occurred to a group of firefighters known as the Hotshots.
Hotshots, they're like the special forces of firefighters.
They are. Hotshots are highly trained professionals, and they're deployed to the most difficult and dangerous fires all over the globe. In 1989, John Hernandez was part of a team of hotshots that were deployed to a mountaintop fire. Now the thing is, firefighting is a dangerous occupation under any circumstances. But in this particular case, the wind shifted and suddenly it intensified and the fire started roaring towards the hotshots and they were trapped.
That doesn't sound good.
It wasn't. At first, everything was going according to plan for Hernandez and the hotshots, but then the wind changed direction, the fire intensified, and it started roaring towards them. The heat was so intense, Zach, that trees themselves began to explode. They only had seconds to react and they were trapped.
So what did they do?
They hit the ground face first, pulled protective gear over them, and Hernandez realized he was suffocating as the fire began to suck the oxygen out of the air.
That's crazy.
Well, Hernandez was pretty convinced he was going to die, and the next thing he knew, he's hovering over the field. He's looking around, and he saw his body lying on the ground, and then he also noticed all his fellow hotshots were also hovering above the mountaintop. And the really weird thing, his friend Jose, who had been born with a deformed foot, his foot looked normal. And then he hears in his mind, Jose telling everyone, hey, look, my foot, it's straight, it's normal.
So, Jose communicated telepathically?
Yes, and then Hernandez was transported to another realm. He said in a bright white light that looked like the sun shining on a field of snow. And from out of the light stepped his uncle and his great-grandfather, and they told him he had to return.
I'm guessing he did.
The next thing Hernandez knew, he was back in his body. He said he felt miserable, but he pulled off the protective gear and he looked around. The entire mountaintop was charred to a crisp.
What about the other hotshots?
They all survived, Zach.
Whoa.
Anybody else, we may question this, but we're talking the hotshots. They're professionals, highly trained, very credible, serious, no-nonsense guys. According to procedure, they all regrouped, and they began to say how they all could see each other floating above the field. Many of them talked about going into a light like Hernandez did and encountering spirits of deceased loved ones. And the really fascinating thing, every single one of them said they saw Jose with a normal foot.
So, what is your conclusion?
I believe this is objectively verifiable fact that near-death and shared-death experiences are proof of the existence of our soul and that life exists beyond the material world.
Thank you, Mark Anthony, for being our guest. So what do you think? Are near-death experiences real, or is it just a side effect of a dying brain? Comment down below and shoot me a DM and join the conversation.